Today we're going to return to stem-changing verbs. In fact, we're going to look at a different set of stem-changing verbs. But first, as a reminder of what a stem changer is, let's look back at the verb tener. When we take off the ending, the AR, the ER, the IR, we're left with the stem. In the case of tener, we're going to change that E to an IE, add in an extra I, so to speak. When we conjugate that out, it looks like this. Tienes, tiene, tienen. Not only do we have to conjugate, but now we have to add that extra I in there. We also call these verbs boot verbs. That's probably an easier way to remember it. But in order to understand what a boot verb is, you have to draw your handy-dandy verb chart. When we start to conjugate, we see a pattern emerge. Within those conjugations here, which forms a boot, is where your stem changes take place. Tengo, tienes, tiene, tienen, and those that fall outside of the boot do not change. Tenemos and tenéis. Now, tener is an extra special verb because the yo form has go at the end. And there are several common verbs like that. We're going to see one today in just a minute. Today we're going to look at E to I stem changing verbs. And believe it or not, you've already seen an E to I stem changing verb. Decir, to say or to tell. We use this commonly when we ask, ¿Cómo se dice? Notice that this E becomes an I. ¿Cómo se dice? Like tener, decir is a special stem change. Not only because we substitute the E for an I, but because the yo form is irregular once again. Digo, yo digo, I say or I tell. Dices, you say or you tell. Dice, as we've seen, he or she says or tells. And dicen, they or y'all say or tell. And like all boot verbs, the nosotros and the vosotros forms do not make the stem change. Decimos and decís. Let's look at another example of a stem changing E to I boot verb. Since we're talking about food in this chapter, let's look at the verb pedir, which means to ask for or to order. When you go to a restaurant to order your food, you're going to have to know how to use the verb pedir, changing this E to an I. Now, let's just go ahead and conjugate like we normally would. It's an IR verb. That's not going to change. That's quite a funny word, actually. You can Google it if you want to. I haven't done what I need to do yet, so I just want to get us started off with what we're familiar with. Okay? Let's conjugate IR verb like we normally would. Then let's go back and make the changes. That E needs to become an I. Pedo becomes pido. Pedes becomes pides. Pede, pide, and peden, piden. Pido, pides, pide, pedimos, oops, little error here. I can edit that in the video later. Pedis. What happens when we have a verb like repetir, which of course means to repeat? You'll notice that there are two E's in the verb. The problem is similar to the one we have with preferir, which is an E to IE stem changer. With preferir, we change the second E. It's always the one right before the end. So with repetir, we're going to change this E. And it'll look something like this. I repeat. Repito. You repeat. Repites. He or she repeats. Repite. You can also use that as a command. If you don't understand something, ask, repite, por favor. Y'all repeat, or they repeat. Repiten. We repeat. Repetimos. And in Spain, y'all repeat. Repetis.